Assalamu alaikum. वेलकम टू द केयर पर्सनल सर्विसेज अकेडमी। मैं हूँ अयाज अली और टुडे आवर टॉपिक इज़ Gen Z movements around the world and lessons for Pakistan. Gen Z movements mostly are leaderless, youth-led movements, initially organized through social media, but later they rise into nationwide protests, marches, and revolutions. You could have seen on social media about the Gen Z movement in India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. Their main grievances could include corruption, unemployment, economic hardships, democratic backsliding, and lack of accountability. What is Gen Z? Gen Z is short for Generation Z, and Generation Z are the people born between 1997 and 2012. Their ages could be 14 to 29 and 2026. These are called digital natives because this is the first generation to grow up with smartphones, high-speed internet, and social media from a very young age. Their other names are Zoomers or the I generation. We first are discussing first Gen Z movement in Sri Lanka, which was named as Aragalaya movement, which means the struggle. तो इसका जो immediate trigger था वो था acute shortages of fuel, cooking gas, food and medicines. Daily electricity cuts lasting 10 to 13 hours. There were long lines stretching for kilometers outside fuel stations in 2022. So on March 31st, 2022, spontaneous protests erupted outside President Gotabaya residence after months of worsening shortages. So this was immediate trigger जिसके ज़रिए लोग जो है सड़कों पे आ गए. बाकी there were deep rooted causes also. वो क्या थे? There was unsustainable public debt. Public debt reached about 119.9% of GDP in 2022 according to IMF projections. Central government debt जो था exceeded 108% of GDP. By 2022, international reserves were projected to fall to only US $2.2 billion, equal to about 1 month of imports. There was also another reason, collapse of foreign exchange reserves. Sri Lanka depended heavily on foreign currency from tourism, worker remittances, tea exports. These sources weakened sharply after the 2019 Easter bombings in Sri Lanka and the COVID-19 pandemic. So there was also tax cuts and fiscal mismanagement. In 2019, President Gotabaya introduced large tax cuts. Government revenue fell from 12.6% of GDP in 2019 to 8.9% of GDP in 2021. So there were fiscal deficits which remained high while debt continued to rise. There was agricultural policy failure. In 2021, government abruptly banned imports of chemical fertilizers and pesticides in an attempt to shift for organic farming. So ये जो abrupt change होती है from one thing to another, ये can backfire. The policy caused major declines in agricultural output because जो agriculture mainly was grown through chemicals and fertilizers. तो जब उनके वो direct shift कर दिए क्या कहते हैं इस पे ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग पे, तो जाहिर सी बात है ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग करने में टाइम लगता है, उसके लिए रिसोर्सेज चाहिए और पॉलिसी फेलियर हो गया, तो ये भी एक काज बना. There was inflation and cost of living crisis. Inflation surged to around 70% during 2022. Corruption and nepotism. Rajapaksa फैमिली जो थी उसकी डायनेस्टिक पॉलिटिक्स चल रही थी ड्यूरिंग दीज डेज. प्राइम मिनिस्टर भी उसी फैमिली का महिंदा राजापाक्सा, प्रेसिडेंट भी उसी का गोटाबाया राजापाक्सा। तो डायनेस्टिक पॉलिटिक्स थी एक्चुअली। सो व्हाट हैपेंड ड्यूरिंग द प्रोटेस्ट पीसफुल डेमोन्स्ट्रेशंस? प्रोटेस्टर्स ने क्या किया कि गोटागो गामा, जिसका मतलब है गोटागो विलेज, वो इस्टेब्लिश कर दिया प्रेसिडेंशियल सेक्रेटरी के सामने। नेशन वाइड मोबिलाइजेशन हुई फेज़ 2 में, मास रैली, सिट इन्स, लेबर स्ट्राइक्स, यूनिवर्सिटी प्रोटेस्ट, सारी कम्युनिटीज़ ने, सारे लोगों ने, हर प्रोफेशन के लोगों ने उसमें हिस्सा लिया। देयर वाज फेज़ 3 ऑफ एस्केलेशन। ये जो सिट इन्स थे, मास रैलीज थी, ये बिल्कुल पीसफुल थी, मगर जो प्रो गवर्नमेंट थे उन्होंने क्या किया, पीसफुल प्रोटेस्ट पे अटैक करना शुरू कर दिए। तो उसने बैकफायर किया। जो प्रोटेस्टर्स थे उन्होंने भी वायलेंस स्टार्ट कर दी। जो हाउसेस बिलोंगिंग और दूसरी चीज़ें पॉलिटिशियंस की थी उनको जला दिया। आल्सो ऑक्यूपाइड ऑफिशियल रेजिडेंसेस। On 9th of July 2020, protesters entered the presidential palace, occupied the presidential secretariat, entered the prime minister's office. They also famously swam in the president's swimming pool. गवर्नमेंट का क्या रिस्पांस था? स्टेट ऑफ इमरजेंसी उन्होंने डिक्लेयर कर दी, कर्फ्यू इम्पोज कर दिया, मिलिट्री डिप्लॉय कर दी, टीयर गैस, वाटर कैनन्स इस्तेमाल किए, अरेस्ट ऑफ प्रोटेस्टर्स हुए, इंटरनेट सोशल मीडिया ब्लैकआउट्स हुए। मगर रिजल्ट क्या निकला? रिजल्ट ये था कि प्राइम मिनिस्टर महिंदा राजापाक्सा रिज़ाइन कर गया मई 2022 में। गोटाबाया जो था वो श्रीलंका छोड़ के भाग गया। बाकी रनिल बिकेम द प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ द। There was another Gen Z movement which was in Bangladesh, which is also known as July Uprising, which started in 2024, जिसका immediate trigger था on 5th of June 2024. Supreme Court restored the 30% quota of dissidents of freedom fighters in government jobs. Students argued that this violated meritocracy. जाहिर सी बात है, एक छोटे से ग्रुप के लिए 30% कोटा जॉब्स का रिजर्व किया जाएगा, तो ये वायलेशन ऑफ मेरिटोक्रेसी है। तो द मूवमेंट बिगेन अंडर स्टूडेंट्स अगेंस्ट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन। डीप रूटेड काजेस थे, यूथ अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट डिस्पाइट इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ। बांग्लादेश की इकोनॉमी कुछ सालों से बढ़ रही थी, मगर फिर भी वहाँ यूथ अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट थी। जो ग्रेजुएट होकर यूनिवर्सिटी से आ रहे थे, दे लेक्ड जॉब्स, जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज़, लेक ऑफ मेरिटोक्रेसी। जब आप 30% कोटा जॉब्स का एक ग्रुप के लिए रिजर्व कर रहे हैं, तो ये दूसरों के लिए डिसएडवांटेज है। जो क्वालिफाइड ग्रेजुएट्स हैं उनके लिए तो जाहिर सी बात है ये डिसएडवांटेज है। देयर वाज आल्सो डेमोक्रेटिक बैकस्लाइडिंग, सप्रेशन ऑफ पोजिशन पार्टीज, डिसेंट वाइज, डिजिटल लॉज, इंटरनेट शटडाउन्स। जैसे आपने ये जो अभी बांग्लादेश का प्राइम मिनिस्टर, ये खुद एग्जाइल में था बाहर, इसी सप्रेशन की वजह से। देयर वाज करप्शन। बांग्लादेश जो था, ट्रांसपेरेंसी इंटरनेशनल के करप्शन परसेप्शन इंडेक्स में भी इतना ज़्यादा कोई स्कोर नहीं था। तो हुआ क्या ड्यूरिंग दिस प्रोटेस्ट? जो प्रोटेस्ट थे वो ऑलमोस्ट एवरी यूनिवर्सिटी में स्टार्ट हो गए। इंटरनेट सर्विसेज वर रिपीटेडली सस्पेंडेड, हंड्रेड्स ऑफ प्रोटेस्टर्स वर किल्ड एट द हैंड ऑफ सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस। रिजल्ट क्या निकला? प्राइम मिनिस्टर शेख हसीना रिजाइन एंड फ्लेड द कंट्री. She fled to India. An interim government headed by Mohammad Yunus was formed. Quota policy was revised. There was another movement in Kenya, Gen Z takes protest, जो जून और जुलाई 2024 में था। इसका इमीडिएट ट्रिगर क्या था? ऑन 13 जून 2024 केनियन गवर्नमेंट इंट्रोड्यूस द फाइनेंस बिल 2024, जिसमें प्रपोज किया था अप्रॉक्सीमेटली $2.7 billion in additional taxes to reduce the fiscal deficit and serve Kenya's growing public debt. Among the most controversial proposals were taxes or levies affecting bread, cooking oil, motor vehicles, mobile money, digital transactions, internet-related services, housing contributions. ये immediate trigger था फाइनेंस बिल। The deep rooted causes क्या थे? Mounting public debt. Public debt जो था stood at about 68% of GDP, well above the 55% threshold recommended by the IMF and World Bank for countries like Kenya. There was rising cost of living. youth unemployment and underemployment, corruption and misuse of public funds, declining trust in political institutions, police brutality and human rights concerns. What happened during the protest? There was online mobilization, hashtags such as Reject Finance Bill 2024 and Occupy Parliament. Phase 2 में nationwide demonstrations where tens of thousands protest in Nairobi and other cities of Kenya. Phase 3 में storming of Parliament on 25th of June 2024. Parliament passed the bill despite nationwide protest. In response, protesters breached Parliament, set some parts of Parliament on fire. Police opened fire using live ammunition. The military was deployed to assist police. फेज 4 में क्या हुआ? एक्सपांशन ऑफ डिमांड्स. पहले था कि रिजेक्ट करो फाइनेंस बिल को, बाद में उन्होंने क्या किया? अपनी डिमांड्स को एक्सपांड कर दिया. रेजिग्नेशन मांग रहे थे प्रेसिडेंट विलियम रूतो का, एक्शन अगेंस्ट करप्शन मांग रहे थे, अकाउंटेबिलिटी फॉर पुलिस किलिंग्स, बेटर गवर्नेंस, इकोनॉमिक जस्टिस. तो रिजल्ट क्या हुआ? प्रेसिडेंट विलियम रूतो डिक्लाइंड टू साइन द फाइनेंस बिल एंड फॉर्मली विथड्रू इट. Several cabinet ministers were dismissed. There was another movement in Serbia which is known as Student Anti-Corruption or Gen Z movement of 2024 to present. वो अभी भी चल रहा है. कभी सोशल मीडिया कैंपेन्स हैं, कभी प्रोटेस्ट हैं. इसका इमीडिएट ट्रिगर ये था, द कंक्रीट कैनोपी ऑफ द रिसेंटली रिनोवेटेड Novi Sad railway station collapsed on November 1, 2024, जिसमें 16 people were killed and one person was permanently disabled. तो इशू ये था कि this railway station was recently renovated, so it undergone expensive reconstruction under government supervision. Many Serbians believe that disaster resulted not from an accident but from corruption, poor quality construction and lack of transparency in awarding contracts. There was systemic corruption, deep-rooted causes: systemic corruption, weak rule of law, democratic backsliding, youth frustration and political elites. Gen Z increasingly rejected traditional political parties. So हुआ क्या? Student mobilization, national expansion, largest demonstrations in decades. On 22nd December 2024, 100,000 to 102,000 protesters in Belgrade. On February 15, 2025, around 169,000 protests in Krajovik. On 15 March 2025, around 355,000 protests in Belgrade, the largest protest in modern Serbian history. Protests spread over 400 cities and towns. Result क्या निकला? Prime Minister Milos Vučević resigned in January 2025 amid mounting pressure. Several officials resigned following the railways disaster. Government released some previously withheld reconstruction documents. Higher education funding was partially increased. There was another movement in Indonesia, Indonesia Gelap, which means dark Indonesia. इसका immediate trigger ये था, the protests erupted after the government issued presidential instruction number 1 of 2025, introducing massive public spending cuts to finance President Prabowo's flagship free nutritious meals program. प्रेसिडेंट ने एक फ्री न्यूट्रिशन मील प्रोग्राम का प्रोजेक्ट दिया, जिसको स्टार्ट करने के लिए दूसरे प्रोजेक्ट से स्पेंडिंग कट्स करने थे. तो इस पे लोगों ने क्या किया? एतराज़ात किए. उन्होंने क्या? दी स्पेंडिंग रिडक्शंस वर एस्टिमेटेड एट अप्रोक्सीमेटली $19 billion, अफेक्टिंग एजुकेशन, यूनिवर्सिटीज, टीचर वेलफेयर, पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, गवर्नमेंट सर्विसेज. तो ये जो स्पेंडिंग कट्स थे दूसरे प्रोजेक्ट्स से एक नए प्रोजेक्ट के लिए, इन पे लोगों को एतराज़ था, क्योंकि ये एक प्रोजेक्ट देते मगर दूसरे प्रोजेक्ट्स को अंडरमाइन करते. डीप रूटेड काजेस: बजट कट्स एंड ऑस्ट्रिक मेयर्स, राइजिंग कॉस्ट ऑफ लिविंग एंड इकोनॉमिक एंजाइटी, यूथ अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट, ग्रेजुएट इनसिक्योरिटी, करप्शन, पुअर गवर्नेंस, ग्रोइंग मिलिट्री इन्फ्लुएंस इन सिविलियन अफेयर्स, आपने देखा होगा इंडोनेशिया में ये जो प्रेसिडेंट्स आए हैं इनका बैकग्राउंड जो है मिलिट्री का है। सुहार्तो था वो उसका बैकग्राउंड मिलिट्री का, सुशीलो का बैकग्राउंड मिलिट्री का, अभी ये जो प्रेसिडेंट है प्रभु सुबियांतो इसका भी बैकग्राउंड मिलिट्री का है। जो तो ये जो इनका बैकग्राउंड है मिलिट्री का है, तो मिलिट्री का इन्फ्लुएंस पब्लिक और सिविल अफेयर्स में ज़्यादा है। What happened during the protests in the Indonesia? Digital mobilization, nationwide demonstrations, later demonstrations in 2025 protested salary increases for legislator labor issues. तो फिर एक और इशू मिल गया उनको सैलरी इंक्रीज फॉर लेजिस्लेटर्स की सैलरी बढ़ाई गई, लेबर के इश्यूज बढ़ गए, गवर्नमेंट ट्रांसपेरेंसी, पुलिस अकाउंटेबिलिटी, ये उन्होंने की मांगी थी। बट गवर्नमेंट ने क्या किया, पुलिस डिप्लॉय की, क्राउड कंट्रोल मेजर्स किए, पब्लिक डिफेंस किया, बजट का। दे डिनाइड दैट एजुकेशन स्पेंडिंग हैड बीन फंडामेंटली हार्म्स। रिजल्ट क्या हुआ, प्रेसिडेंट प्रभु सुबियांतो कैबिनेट लेटर अंडरवेंट रीशफलिंग एंड सम पॉलिसीज आर रिवाइज्ड अंडर सस्टेन पब्लिक प्रेशर। सो through this the movement demonstrated the growing political influence of Indonesia's Generation Z. There was another movement in Nepal, which is also famous movement and one of the successful movements in modern history, and of successful movement of Gen Z also. Its immediate trigger was in early September 2025, Nepalese government ordered internet services providers to block 26 major social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, YouTube, Twitter, Snapchat. Why? Because government argued that these platforms had failed to register under new regulations designed to combat misinformation and cybercrime. ये हुआ कि जेन जी सोशल मीडिया में मसरूफ़ थी, रील्स बना रही थी, स्टोरीज बना रही थी, स्नैपचैट्स बना रही थी। गवर्नमेंट ने क्या किया, सोते शेर को जगा दिया। जेन जी दूसरी पालिस पे बातें नहीं कर रही थी, खामोश थे। देयर वर आल्सो डीप रूटेड काजेज, बट जेन जी उनकी तरफ अभी नहीं आई थी। गवर्नमेंट ने क्या किया, ऐसे समझो कि उनका एक किस्म का फूड जो है बंद कर दिया, सोशल मीडिया फूड। So young people viewed the ban as an attack on freedom of expression, an attempt to silence anti-corruption activism, a tool to suppress criticism of political elites. There was deep rooted causes: political patronage, nepotism, weak accountability, misuse of public resources, widespread corruption, youth unemployment and lack of economic opportunities, poor governance, restrictions on freedom of expression. So these growed distrust of political elites. So what happened during the protests? Social media ban, nationwide demonstrations, violent confrontation. On September 8, 2025, protesters breached police barricades. Some entered the parliament complex. An ambulance was set on fire. Police responded with tear gas, water cannons, batons, rubber bullets. The army was deployed. An indefinite curfew was imposed in Kathmandu. Political crisis, days of protesters intensified public anger. Government lifted the social media ban. Despite these measures, political pressure continued to mount. So the result was Prime Minister KP Sharma resigned, social media ban was revoked, a caretaker government was formed. There was a movement in Madagascar, Gen Z Madagascar भी वो भी उठे, उन्होंने कहा हम भी खामोश नहीं रहेंगे। तो इसका इमीडिएट ट्रिगर क्या था? द प्रोटेस्ट बिगिन ऑन 25th of September 2025 आफ्टर मंथ्स ऑफ सेवियर इलेक्ट्रिसिटी ब्लैकआउट्स, वाटर शॉर्टेजेस, फेल्यूर्स बाय द स्टेट यूटिलिटी जिरामा। स्टेट की यूटिलिटी कंपनी एक जिरामा मडागास्कर में, जिसकी जिम्मेदारी इलेक्ट्रिसिटी वाटर, तो वो फेल हो गई। तो देयर वर इलेक्ट्रिसिटी ब्लैकआउट्स एंड वाटर शॉर्टेजेस। सो दे सेड वी आर फेड अप विथ लोड शेडिंग। डीप रूटेड काजेस क्या थे? Chronic poverty. More than 75% of the population of Madagascar lives below the national poverty line. There is collapse of basic public services for years. Corruption, weak governance, youth unemployment, lack of opportunities, rising living costs. So people started peaceful demonstrations, but the movement rapidly spread across the country, demanding President Rajuliana's resignation and dissolution of Senate. Government responded with violent crackdowns. So the result on 11th October 2025, the elite military unit KFSAT refused to suppress protesters and sided with the movement. तो ये एक किस्म का आर्मी में रिबेलियन हो गया, क्योंकि आर्मी गवर्नमेंट के साथ नहीं रही, प्रोटेस्टर्स के साथ आ गई. On the following day, President Henry Rajoelina fled the country. Colonel Michael became transitional president of the Madagascar. There was also Gen Z movement in Morocco, named as Gen Z 212 movement. Why it is named 212? The movement derived its name Gen Z 212 from Morocco's international dialing code +212. Its immediate trigger was in August 2025 at Hassan II Public Hospital in Agadir. 8 pregnant women died within 10 days because of failures in maternal health care. The tragedy became a national symbol of the collapse of Morocco's healthcare system. The movement adopted the slogan, "We do not want the World Cup, health first." Why they said we do not want the World Cup? Because the government was spending $35 billion. They had planned to invest $35 billion in infrastructure linked to 2030 FIFA World Cup. Youth questioned this. Why? So they said we do not want the World Cup, health first. There were deep-rooted causes: high youth unemployment of 15 to 24 years aged reached 35.8%, and those overall national unemployment stood at 12.8%. हेल्थ सिस्टम देख लिया आपने, ये जो हसन पब्लिक हॉस्पिटल में हुआ, ये जाहिर करता है कि हेल्थ केयर सिस्टम कैसा था. वीक एजुकेशन सिस्टम वाज आल्सो देयर, राइजिंग इनइक्वालिटी एंड कास्ट ऑफ लिविंग. गवर्नमेंट स्पेंडिंग प्रायोरिटीज वर on other projects, as we discussed. So what happened during the protests? Digital mobilization, nationwide demonstrations, violent clashes between government and protesters, government forces and protesters. Riot police intervened, tear gas, force were used, hundreds were arrested. Result क्या निकला? The government introduced increased healthcare and education funding, new hospital construction and renovation projects. So it's kind of unsuccessful movement. The famous and new movement, India's Cockroach Janata Party movement. Its background is the Cockroach Janata Party was formed in May 2025 after remarks made by India's Chief Justice Surya Kant, who during a court hearing allegedly compared unemployed young people and activists to cockroaches and parasites. But the collective was launched as an online satirical project by political communications strategist Abhijit Deepak. So, and the immediate trigger was repeated leaks of competitive exams like in NEET and other recruitment exams. Deep-rooted causes were repeated examination paper leaks. Since 2019, youth unemployment, the State of Working India report by Azam Premji University says nearly 40% of graduates aged 15 to 25 and 20% of those aged 25 to 29 are jobless in India. Student mental health crisis. According to the National Crime Records Bureau data, over 13,000 students die by suicide annually in India. 13,000 students. Declining trust in public institutions. When public institutions don't deliver effectively, it is right to decline trust in them. So what happened during the protest? There were marches, march towards parliament, Jantar Mantar, Chowk, nationwide protests, and authorities responded with police deployment, tear gas, betting charges, detentions, restrictions on protest. Protesters were injured. And what was the result? Result was Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan resigned, and on 25th of July 2026, it means government can't bear the pressure of Gen Z. Government accepted key protest demands. The protest demonstrated that India's digitally connected youth could influence national policy making through sustained, decentralized, non-partisan mobilization. Now the second part, lessons for Pakistan. Looking at the demographic reality in Pakistan, nearly 70 million Gen Z citizens, जिसका मतलब we have young population about 70 million, which was born between 1997 and 2012. There are also existing challenges of Pakistan. क्या है वो? राइजिंग अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट है, इन्फ्लेशन है, रिस्ट्रिक्शन ऑन सोशल मीडिया है, कर्टेलमेंट ऑफ फ्री एक्सप्रेशन है, वीक प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ सिविल लिबर्टीज है. There is a risk demographic dividend may become a demographic catastrophe. Pakistan has a large demographic dividend of youth, but due to these existing challenges, this demographic dividend may become a demographic catastrophe for Pakistan. There are also signs of internal pushback, domestic pushback, the unrest in Balochistan, KP, Azad Kashmir, resistance against elite-dominated power structures, political unrest, detention of political and human rights activists, weak judicial independence after the amendments. There are also regional implications. Pakistan's internal instability could spill over regional borders. Border tensions may make domestic unrest more dangerous. Border tensions कौन से? इंडिया के साथ, अफगानिस्तान के साथ. So these tensions may make domestic unrest more dangerous. Also, failure to address youth grievances may have wider geopolitical consequences. As Zaid Hussain recently wrote in his article in Dawn, what has unfolded in these four South Asian countries, Bangladesh, Nepal, India and Sri Lanka, is a lesson for Pakistan, which not only has a large youth population but also suffers from political and economic problems. Given the tensions existing along Pakistan's borders, more unrest could have far-reaching consequences beyond the frontiers. As the regional landscape is highly volatile, Pakistan must restore democratic rights before it is too late. Also, the Interior Minister of Pakistan, Mohsen Naqvi, said if cockroaches unite, they can overturn everything. If you need these slides, send a mail on this given mail ID. Also subscribe, like, comment, share and share our video and subscribe to our YouTube channel Khairpur Civil Services Academy. Also comment about this video. Thank you for watching.